Test, test.
And what about that one?
I did check that one. Page 12. Naria, Naria, Litsui, Shenu, Nekad, Mafana, Betoda. Naria, Naria, Litsui, Shenu, Bizmiro, Naria, Lo. Lechuneranena, 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 Ladonai. Lechuneranena, 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 Ladonai. Lechuneranena, Ladonai. Naria, Litzoy Yishenu. Lechuneranena, Ladonai. Naria, Litzoy Yishenu. Nikadma, Fanabetoda, Bizmirot, Naria, Lo. Nikadma, Fanabetoda, Bizmirot, Naria, Lo. Lechuneranena, Ladonai. Naria, Litzoy Yishenu. Lechuneranena, Ladonai. Naria, Litzoy Yishenu. Nekadma, Fanabetoda, Bizmirot, Naria, Lo. Nekadma, Fanabetoda, Bizmirot, Naria, Lo.
Shabbat Shalom. Good Shabbos, everyone. It is great to see you. You know, we talked this morning if we're going to have start our summer services here in the chapel or stay in the sanctuary. And I said, the only way to make sure that there'll be a lot of people is to have it in a chapel in a space where there's not enough people for how many will come. But I knew if we did that, then we'd get a lot of people. So I have to bring out a few extra chairs. It's not the worst thing that ever happened. It's a really exciting Shabbat. There's a lot going on. This morning, Rabbi Greengrass led a group of about 45 Beth Amers on our annual summer trip to Israel, and they should, I think they've landed. I have no idea what time they landed or when it was, but they're off, and we're really excited for them. I think we have 4 or 5 B'nai Mitzvah that they'll be celebrating over there. And Cantor Koyo is in Naples, Florida, with about 45 families, young Beth Am families who are having a Shabbaton together in Naples. They're roughing it. It's one of these outdoor camp Shabbaton experiences at the Ritz-Carlton in Naples. But I hope that they're going to be okay. We are very excited tonight to welcome back to town Jessica Fain, and we'd like to invite Jessica along with her mom Colleen for the honor of kindling our Shabbat lights as we turn together in our prayer books to page 2.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lechad likner shel Shabbat.
Amen. So it's not every day that you get to meet a celebrity. It's not every day that you get to meet, the kind of person who, graces the cover of really well-known magazines. But tonight, you're in for a treat because our new president, Rich Siegel, and his wife Jackie are here, and if you've seen the new commentator, you know that we're in the presence of a great celebrity. So, on the occasion of his first Shabbat as our president, we'd like to invite Rich and Jackie to please join us for our Shabbat Kiddush. President Siegel. Not much love. All right. I would have thought. There you go. We sanctify this Shabbat as holy with our Kiddush on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh zecher letziyat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim ve'shavat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim, mazel tov to Rich and to Jackie. many more Shabbatot together. Mazel tov. Get used to it. Get used to it. He loves the spotlight. Just kidding. So, I'm from Pennsylvania, and this past fall, when the Phillies were in the World Series, I said to a friend of mine who's a rabbi at a congregation in Philadelphia, there's a game, the Phillies game was on a Friday night, and I said, nobody's going to come to your service. Are you even having it? Because the game was starting at 7 o'clock, and she said, yeah, we're doing services at 4 o'clock. That's what they did. So look, tonight we're lucky. Sharon, our executive director, called the Arrisons, asked them to push the game back to 8:30 tonight, so you have nothing to worry about. Now, traditionally, you're not allowed to see the Shabbat candles you're not allowed to use them for anything except to signify Shabbat. You can't use them to read. You can't use them to, as light to get around. But for one night only, if you want to see the candles as a symbol of the heat, for one night only, I guess it's okay. We're going to welcome now the Sabbath Bride, page 20, L'chadodi.
L'chadodi, likra kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi, likra kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Shamoy v'zochor b'dibur echad, yishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, Hashem ul tiferet v'litila. L'chadodi, likra kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi, likra kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, kiva orech kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kivod Adonai, alayich nigla. L'chadodi, likra kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi, likra kala, pene Shabbat nekabela.
We rise as we welcome the Sabbath Bride.
Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam besimcha uv'tzohala, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, l'chadodi, likra kala, pene Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi, likra kala, pene Shabbat nekabela.
We continue with the Baruch Hu on page 28.
Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai,
Please join with me as we read together on the top of page 31. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Vaed.
Please be seated. Continue on page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravaged by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Michamocha, page 40. Continue on page 45. Please join with me as we read together on the top of the page. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We continue with Tefillah on page 46. Please rise.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Velohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Velohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Vekoneh Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol atah Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal. Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bagvurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit Umechaye, Umatmiach Yeshua, ונאמנת להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. We continue together on the top of page 55. Please join with me as we read together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Continue with Ritzeh on page 56.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tikabel u'tehile ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael. Yisrael amecha el karov lechol kol pnei avadecha bechonenu shefach ruchacha alinu ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון. ברחמים ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו
In this week's Torah portion, there is a complaint that the Israelites have to Moses about the manna, the food that they're eating, and they're tired of it. They're tired of eating the exact same food that's raining down from heaven. And they say, wouldn't it be great if we were back in Egypt where they had watermelon and cucumbers and meat? And you could say, the watermelon and cucumbers are very nice, but would you want to be a slave just for the cucumbers and the watermelon? It's a bizarre complaint. And what the rabbis had a real problem with was the manna was supposed to taste like whatever you wanted it to taste like. But yet they had a problem with how it tasted. And the rabbis answer, it's because in order for it to taste like something, you had to be thinking about something. You had to have intention about what you wanted it to be. And this is the same for every mitzvah. It used to be that when you brought your sacrifice in the Holy Temple, if you didn't have in your mind exactly what you were bringing the sacrifice for, then the sacrifice was called pigul. It didn't count. It was invalidated. And it's the same thing with our prayers. If you offer a prayer, but you're not focused on the intent of that prayer, it's really as if you didn't do it. So now we have a moment of silent prayer where we can take each our own prayers and try to direct those prayers to what's truly important. So let's now each take a moment for our own silent prayers and meditations.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim.
I didn't know you were that tall. I have to move the mic down. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the summer. It's so great to hear everybody singing in the chapel. When it's time to laugh a couple times in the sermon, I want the same amount of energy as you're singing. All right, that was a good start. Thank you, Jessica. I asked Jessica to add in that beautiful ritzeh. You know, everybody has a time of the service when it really feels like Shabbat for them. That ritzeh sets me off on Shabbat. So now I prayed before, but that moves me in another place. So thank you. El karov l'chol karav. God is close to all who call upon God. It's a nice message, and it's a good message for this Shabbat. You all know that the technology for Waze was created in Israel. Of course, if you didn't know that, you can sign up for the next Federation mission. We'll tell you that. We'll take you places. And without it, we know that men would still be getting lost. Why? Because they don't? Right. Or in the case of my home, he calls, and it goes something like, honey, I passed the McDonald's. Do I make a left or a right? And I say, which McDonald's, and where do you want to go? Happily, I've been replaced by Waze. But Waze wasn't the first navigation system for the Jewish people. Not for any man, okay, I'll have to say it, or for any women. For our first navigation system came from God. It was the pillar of cloud by day and fire by night that Moses saw that told him it was time to break up camp or to encamp. And yet, despite God's presence, the Israelites' journey in the book of Bamidbar and the book of Numbers is fraught with danger, disappointment, and even despair. The goal, of course, as you know, was to advance to the promised land of Israel. But they are just too human, they are just too frail, and they are just too faulty to get there. In Psalm 106, we hear some of their predicament in the wilderness, beginning with fleeing from Egypt. God delivered them from the hand of him that hated them and redeemed them from the hand of the enemy. Then water covered their adversaries. Not one of them was left. Then they believed God's promise and sang God's praises. But they soon forgot God's deeds, and they would not wait to learn God's plan. They were seized with cravings in the wilderness and put God to the test in the wasteland. So God gave them what they asked for, but sent leanness into their soul. Vayishlach razon benafsham. And the lean soul is never satisfied. In chapter 11 of this week's Torah portion, Ba'alotacha, the Israelites are bitterly murmuring complaints, as Rabbi Barra said, before God. And guess what? God doesn't like it. Vayahi ha'am kemit onanim, ra be'oznei Adonai. Vayishma Adonai, vayichar apo, vativar bam ish Adonai, vatochal b'ktzei ha'mechaneh. The people took to complaining bitterly before Adonai. Adonai heard and was incensed. A fire of Adonai broke out against them, ravaging the outskirts of the camp. So the Torah doesn't directly share with us what they were murmuring about. After all, what God hears a murmuring, God does really understand. God doesn't need any further explanations, but we do. And so we turn to the commentators. Most, including Rashi, say that these complaints were a pretext. They were a pretext because the Israelites were already moving away from God and the commandments, even though they just so recently received Torah from Sinai. Rabbeinu Bachya, as well as the Ramban, indicate that the desert overwhelmed the Israelites. He wrote, as the people entered the desert, they experienced a variety of uncomfortable sensations. We know how we get when we're uncomfortable. These complaints were very displeasing in the ears of the Lord, seeing they were caused by the fact that instead of marching joyfully towards their destiny in the Holy Land, the people marched only grudgingly. They had lean souls. If one were a responsible person and lived through the Exodus, crossed the sea on dry land, experienced the miracle of receiving the Torah, one would pause, reflect, and might even say, hey, this God is pretty awesome. Look what God can do. An unreasonable person might say, what's next? What have you done for me lately? There are no signs or wonders that could get them loyally back on track. Even with the physical appearance of the cloud, their soul was lean. The fire that was the punishment for the murmurings ravages the outskirts of the camp, we read. Rashi describes this biktzeh hamachaneh, the outskirts of the camp, as the people who were at either end of the camp. And in modern Hebrew, biktzeh, we can build the word kitzonim, extremists. Rashi continues his description. These were the people. They were extreme in their baseness, this mixed multitude. And he continues, but Rabbi Simeon, the son of Manasseh, said, it means that the fire consumed the most distinguished and prominent ones among them. So you see, the outskirts might not have been a physical location, but rather the behavior of those who were killed, the riffraff on one side, the most distinguished on the other. Last week, I attended the Recharging Reform Judaism Conference in New York City. And in one session, the presenter from the ADL was asked, how do you respond to the anti-Zionist and to the anti-Semite? By the way, generally, they're one and the same. She responded, well, if they are extremists, they won't change their mind. So start with the people you can have a conversation with. And yes, this is what we try to do here. I have been working with women in our sisterhood for almost a year on ways to share our Jewish identity with others and ways to respond to the micro or macro aggressions of anti-Semitism. And our Unbiased initiative at Beth Am is also working towards building bridges and relationships to end anti-Semitism and bias against all who suffer. But how does this approach work out in this week's Torah portion? Well, God did away with the extremists, but did the ravaging fire teach anyone a lesson? No, the rabbis say, because in just 3 verses later in chapter 11, verse 4, the complaining continues. The riffraff in their midst felt a gluttonous craving. And then the Israelites wept and said, if only we had meat to eat. For we remember the fish we used to eat free in Egypt, the cucumbers and the melons and the leeks, the onions and the garlic. Well, here's the problem. Before they were killed, these outliers, these extremists, influenced the others. And therefore, we must address them too. Extremists influence others, so we must call them out. We must be the influencers for those who will listen, who will be open to a relationship, who want to share their experiences and hear ours. We must have the compelling story. Yet, those who hate us, not those, and those are the ones in the extreme. Last week, while in New York at this conference, I had a great idea, and I took my Brooklyn girls to see the show Parade. It stars, as you may know, Ben Platt as Leo Frank, a Jewish man arrested for murder in Atlanta. Parade is a musical dramatization of his 1913 trial and imprisonment and his subsequent lynching in 1915 after his sentence was commuted from death to life in prison. He was kidnapped from the prison, pulled out, and lynched. When I bought the tickets, I told my girls briefly that the play is inspired by this anti-Semitic act in the early 20th century, and it stars Ben Platt. My girls heard they're going to a show starring Ben Platt. To be fair, I knew the history well, but was shocked by the musical. Moving songs about restoring Georgia to her glory were woven throughout the play, while depicting the ease with which regular folk turn so easily against the outsider, in this case, the Jewish man from Brooklyn, Leo Frank. By intermission, the feeling of helplessness and sadness for the Jews who thought they had made it in Atlanta was palpable. And one of my daughters turned to me and said, "Ima, maybe we should have gone to see The Lion King again." On the 100th anniversary of the trial of Leo Frank and the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the ADL published, looking back, we can see that this great tragedy as representing the two sides of America and the Jews that still exist today. But today, we are in a very different balance and form. In the long term, one can argue that the reaction to the Frank affair set the stage for dramatic improvement in Jewish life in America. Newspaper editorials across the country overwhelmingly supported Frank. Opinion makers commented about the degree of anti-Semitism surrounding the trial. Even early on, Jews understood that an influential public could be called upon for support when anti-Semitism reared its ugly head. Friends, we today are the influential public, and we don't back down from that. We embrace it. You see, the murmurings of those on the outskirts can't be ignored. And for some reason, their influence is great. And it seems like those people of reason, well, our influence is just, So great is their influence that in this week's Torah portion, their death did not even awaken the Israelites to see, you know what? We should march with joy on to the promised land and not complain about those cucumbers and leeks. And they committed that crime against God. So from Bamidbar until today, we know that the Jewish people need to be the voices, to bring back to the center reason, to speak out against extremism, and not just say, well, they're biktseh hamachaneh. They are on the outskirts of the camp, because the outskirts has incredible influence. And you know what? So do we. Ken Yeh Ratzon. Shabbat Shalom.
There are many in our congregation who are not well and in need of God's healing presence, whether they're in the hospital or at home recovering or have upcoming procedures coming up in the next days and weeks. We want to keep all of them in our prayers. If you have a name of someone in particular that you'd like to include in our prayers, please feel free to say their names aloud now.
Cindy M., the family of Keter
Say, Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim, blessed are you, O God, who brings healing to the sick. We join together the words of Mishaberach.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. Blessed may the source of strength, who bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuach shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Return now to our prayer books on page 282. Aleinu l'shabeach. Please rise.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzer bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo samanu משתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We are very grateful tonight to Colleen and Richard Fain for hosting our pre-nag tonight, and we're delighted to welcome Jessica back to Miami and to welcome her now to share a reflection on her grandma whose first yortzeit is upon us.
I'm also shorter than Rabbi Barris, so we'll adjust accordingly. Thank you to Rabbis Barris and Aklepi for allowing me to say a few words about my beloved grandmother, Rosalie Ferris, on her first yortzeit. And I apologize, since becoming a mother, I've become quite weepy. And so I will cry at some point, but thank you for bearing with me. So I'm Jessica Fain, daughter of Richard and Colleen Fain. I grew up in this building, not this building, but here, Be'erach, this building, and it's a true joy to bring my own daughter, Chana, here to see the special community that raised me, with so many of you who raised me. There are only a handful of people in this room who knew my grandmother, who ever met her, Rosalie. She was born and raised in Southern California and died last year in true grandma fashion at 101, Baruch Hashem, near painless, quietly in the home where she lived independently until her death. Rosalie was like the Forrest Gump of our family. She participated in so many historical events, but she never made a big deal out of it. Throughout my life, she'd casually mention certain experiences that caused me to say, wait, what? For example, she earned a college degree as a woman on the heels of the Great Depression. She worked as a riveter in a factory during World War II. We called her Rosalie the Riveter. She had neighbors who endured the horrors of Japanese internment. She was told by her employer to quit when she became pregnant. But there was never any drama to her stories, only a sense of duty. Of course, she went to college. She needed a good job to support her family. Of course, she worked in a factory during World War II. She needed to help the country. Of course, she showed up for every wedding, every birth, every meaningful cause and event, because that's just what you do. You may not have known my grandmother, but if you know her daughter, Colleen Fain, then you know that this is the way she lives her life. A deep sense of duty, unadored by much fanfare. You also may know my father, Richard Fain, who's not known for his lack of adornment or lack of fanfare, but has many other very redeeming qualities. My mom called my grandmother every day for years at 5:30 on the dot. And I recently learned that my mom took out a subscription to the Riverside Times, the local newspaper where my grandmother lived, and dutifully read it every day so they had something new and interesting to discuss. Why? That's just what you do. The book of Micah tells us, Higid lecha Adam ma tov u'ma Hashem doresh mimcha. You have been told, O mortal, what is good and what God requires of you. Ki im asot mishpat ve'avta chesed ve'atznei lechet im Elokecha. Only to do justice and to love goodness and to walk modestly with your God. You may not have known my grandmother, but her legacy is echoed in every loving act of duty, especially in this building. It's such a privilege to share that legacy with you and with my daughter, who got to know her great-grandmother, Gigi, as we called her. It is we and you that do the work to keep my grandmother's legacy alive in this world while she is in the next.
Wow. So beautiful. Thank you, Jessica. And this is the first time, I think at Beth Am, that my height of 5'9.5" has really been celebrated as it deserves. Yeah. So, okay. In all seriousness, there are many in our congregation who are mourning this Shabbat, and we are saying Kaddish especially tonight for Melissa Rubin, and sending our love and thoughts to our colleague Cantor Ronit Rubin on her very difficult loss. We are in the period of Shloshim, the 30-day period of mourning, for Frida Eisenberg, Jennifer Gross, Ronald B. Hines, David Gerswolf, Gary Spencer, Sally Tenzer, Arnold Arnie Levitt, Howard Greiner, Tanya Stern, and Phoebe Gulkin. We are in the period of the first year of mourning for Judy Agron, Lillian Berman, Chayusia Perlman Bernstein, Vicky Kufeld Broad, Charlotte Glavsky Brody, Arthur Farkas, Florence Farkas, Rosalie Ferris, Mitch Friedman, Jocelyn Jeroff, Judith Gilbert Gold, Dr. Martin Glazer, Dr. Henry Irwin Glick, Rivka Ricky Blattner Goldman, Andrew Gross, Joseph Harvest, Rosa Henigman, Jeffrey Hertz, Evan Higgins, Etta S. Kalter, Ruth LaShaw, Phyllis Lieberman, Lawrence Larry Parker, Eric Polk, Karen Michelle Salomon, Susan D. Score, Bela Malka Marcia Weinstein, Harriet Zuller. We're also in the period of Shiv'ah, the 7-day period of mourning for Tzvika Golad. We mark on the occasion of their yortzites on this Shabbat: Moira Adler, Ann Abel, Charles Auerbach, Celia Axelrod, Evelyn Balling, Pauline Bergman, Edward M. Bernstein, Abraham Binkow, Gertrude M. Brenner, Martha Cohen, Werner Cohen, Edith Dreyer, Dr. Harry Harris Engel, Victor H. Eskenazi, Rose P. Fine, Sidney Friedman, Morris Friedman, Saba Furmansky, Harry Gabriello, Sarah Gilbert, Max Glasser, Florette Goodman, Sadie Greenblatt, Melvin C. Greenfield, Harry L. Gross, Samuel Holtzman, Ada Harnick, Drew Heller, Oscar Jacobs, Max Jarris, Edith Levin Klein, Felicia Knoll, Herman Zvi Knoll, Sigmund Knoll, Jean Cohn, Murray Kosman, Ariella Kubi, Frida Kraft, Marion Krungold, Byron Krulowicz, Esther Lanster, Hermine Lash, Jacqueline Lederhandler, Anna Leibowitz, Saul Leland, Cecilia Sarah Levy, Florence Levin, Seymour Leibowitz, Sidney Macon, Seymour Mann, Ella Marcus, Blanca Igozi Maya, Hyman Mayer, Jacob Harry Melnick, Rose Milgram, Alan D. Nexon, Isidore Oren, Tilly Panter, Francis R. Payton, Harvey Poster, Marion Posen, Marvin Pritikin, David Provinsky, Ann Reisman, Muriel Revitz, Doris Rosenthal, Elise Sebastier, Harry Sands, Samuel Scherzer, Rose Schneider, Shirley Schraub, Joel Schultz, Morris Siegel, Elliot Sharp, Harry Siegel, Robert Singer, Evelyn Sirkin Singer, William Sirkin, Abe Smolens, Lee Sotloff, Samuel Sotloff, Robert M. Stern, Lawrence Sukert, Nathan Sukert, Ruth Syrup, Alan David Turoff, David Euclist, Audrey Morgan Volk, Carol Wald, Peter Wallach, Albert H. Wine, Barry Allen Weisberg, Robert A. Whittam, and Jack Young. Are there any other names to include in our Yortzeit list, including also Flora Braun Ruzal? Any other names to include on our list? We join together in the Mourner's Kaddish, page 294, as we rise together. Yit Gadal, V'Yikadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'Alnad Yivrach, Cherutei, V'Amlich Malchutei, V'Chayechon, V'Yamechon, Chayei D'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'Galav, V'Zman Kariv, V'Imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Mevarach, Le'olam, Omei, Omaya. Yitbarach, V'Yishtabach, V'Yitpa'ar, V'Yitramam, V'Yitnaseh, V'Yithadar, V'Yit'aleh, V'Yit'alal, Shmei D'Kudesha, Briachu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, and let us say, Amen. Please be seated. So every 2 years it happens to me. Finally got used to David Young. And just when I was starting to figure him out, they get rid of him. No. Actually, it's quite a thing. He's still here. Doesn't always happen with past presidents. It is a great honor to welcome now our president, Richard Siegel, for some words of greeting and some announcements.
Oh, look how tall you are. Yeah, come on a Friday. No one's going to be here. You don't have to prepare anything. Thank you. Thank you, David, for preparing me for this. I said to, first I'd like to, there's a visitor here tonight named Claudia, who I heard, someone shared her name with me, and just wanted to welcome her to our community tonight. And now she can go home and tell her community that I have found the only congregation that has standing room only Shabbat services in the summer. So this is actually, I've been your president for 3 weeks, although this is the first Friday I've been in town since becoming your president. And I remember going through with David Young some of the responsibilities of being president. He said, oh, you have to do the Friday announcements, and he explained to me what that is. I'm like, let me get this straight. The only thing standing behind people leaving and getting started with their weekend is me coming up. You have a room, ideally like tonight, full of people, a portion of which are definitely here involuntarily. And I'm going to read to them excerpts from the pamphlet that they've been spending the last hour reading. So I said, I'll do that if I have to, but I'm really going to try to come up with something else. So tonight I came up with something else. I'm sure next week I'll be back to read from the pamphlet. But the something else for me is my wife Jackie and I had the honor of attending the 5th grade graduation here yesterday, which was, anyone who attended, was just an unbelievably amazing event. And we hadn't been at a 5th grade graduation until our youngest daughter had her 5th grade graduation. And we hearkened back to it, and it made us feel so good to see so many of the amazing traditions that existed in the day school here that I'm sure you will remember too are still alive and kicking today. But it also caused me to think, one of the 2 Fridays I've been your president that I wasn't here, we were actually at Abby's college graduation, which we juxtaposed with her 5th grade graduation, which was the last time we were at one here. And it really struck me, if anyone is wondering what Beth Am does that is so amazing and impactful. Our daughter is now 2 weeks post-graduated college. She could be anywhere in the world right now, thanks to the overindulgence of her parents. She has friends that are backpacking across Europe. She has other friends that are at hostels in Asia. And my daughter tonight was welcoming the Shabbat bride with her best friends at the Western Wall in Jerusalem. So if that is not emblematic of how amazing this place is and the impact it has on people and generations to come, I don't know what is. So I'd like to thank the clergy. I know David says I have to be very respectful of them, but in the summer, I'm going to call this the J Cubed crew, because we have 3 J's up here, and Billy as well, for great music. And I wish everyone here a restful and meaningful Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Not bad. Good stuff. All right, Kalhina, you ready? Please join us in our closing song, page 327. You probably know it without the pages, but if you want it, it's on page 327 in Kelohenu. Very nice. We invite you to turn to your neighbors and wish them Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.